My fiancée told me she needed space to figure out her emotions, specifically to reevaluate her lingering feelings for her ex. In response, I did something that left her completely stunned. I didn't plead, I didn't wait around. I called off our wedding and ended things in a way she never saw coming. My name is Jake. I'm 32 years old, and until just a few weeks ago I genuinely believed my life was on a clear and promising path. Rewind about 4 years. Everything changed the night I met Brittany. That evening, I was at a house party thrown by one of my closest friends. There, among a crowd of half-drunk people making small talk over cheap beer, stood Brittany. She was 29, blonde, toned, and carried herself with a confidence that was magnetic. I remember thinking she had this energy that lit up the room. We struck up a conversation, and instantly I felt drawn in. The way she laughed, especially at my jokes, made me feel like the funniest guy in the world. She'd lightly touch my arm when she laughed, and there was a spark that was impossible to ignore. I wasn't just attracted. I was intrigued. I wanted to see where things could go, and luckily, so did she. We began dating soon after. Brittany worked as a freelance graphic designer with a client list that included some pretty big names. Her schedule was flexible, and mine was stable enough that we synced up easily. We developed a routine: weeknight dinners together, weekend hikes, and the occasional splurge at a trendy new restaurant in town. We clicked in every way, mentally, emotionally, and yes, physically too. The chemistry was undeniable. After about a year of dating, we decided to take the next step and move in together. I already had a place, a well-kept 2-bedroom in a quiet upscale neighborhood with an open-concept kitchen that was newly renovated. Brittany moved in with just a few boxes, some stylish furniture, and a small jungle of potted plants she treated like children. Living together was smoother than I'd expected. There were no petty fights over laundry or unwashed dishes, none of the cliches my friends constantly griped about in their relationships. If anything, we became even closer. Fast forward 3 more years, and everything between us felt solid and settled. We started having serious talks about the future, marriage, kids, maybe even buying a bigger home down the line. I'd been saving money for a long time, and I finally decided it was time to pop the question. I splurged on a ring that cost way more than I probably should have spent, but I wanted something that would wow her without feeling over the top. It was the kind of ring that turns heads, subtle, elegant, and definitely capable of sparking a bit of envy among her friends. The proposal happened during a weekend getaway in the mountains. I waited for the right moment: sunset, a scenic overlook, and just the two of us. I dropped to one knee and asked her to marry me. She burst into tears, the good kind, and said yes before I even finished the question. That night we stayed up talking about wedding venues, guest lists, and the life we were about to build together. We chose October for the big day and found this picturesque venue nestled beside a lake about an hour outside the city. We locked it down with a deposit, started calling caterers, and even looked into local string quartets for the ceremony. My parents chipped in a little financially, though I insisted on covering most of the expenses. That's just how I've always been. I take pride in handling the big responsibilities. Brittany threw herself into wedding planning with what I thought was genuine excitement. She created elaborate Pinterest boards filled with color palettes, flower arrangements, and centerpieces. She dragged me to cake tastings, which, let's be honest, I didn't mind. Free samples of dessert? Count me in. She had detailed visions about everything from bridesmaid dresses to napkin folds. I didn't understand half of it, but I loved seeing her light up every time we talked about it. Meanwhile, I focused on the practical side, crunching numbers, confirming bookings, negotiating with vendors. Between that and my job, which had recently come with another promotion, I felt like everything was finally falling into place. I had the career, the house, the soon-to-be wife. My friends, though they cracked jokes about me being whipped, were clearly impressed. Even my father, a man who doesn't hand out praise easily, told me he was proud of how far I'd come. Then everything started to unravel, subtly at first, almost imperceptibly. Around 6 months before the wedding date, Brittany began pulling back. The same woman who used to call me to debate over floral centerpieces suddenly couldn't be bothered to answer basic planning questions. When I asked if she'd chosen her bridesmaids, she'd shrug and say she was still thinking. She brushed off decisions about the DJ, the cake, even her own wedding dress. It wasn't like her at all. This was the same woman who had made a countdown calendar on our fridge, marking every month until our wedding, with themed stickers. And yet, suddenly, she was the queen of "there's still time." More concerning than her apathy was how secretive she became with her phone. Her iPhone, which used to lie face up on the couch or coffee table, was now always flipped over. She started taking calls in other rooms or behind locked bathroom doors. Sometimes I'd catch her smiling while texting, only for her to hastily close whatever app she was on the moment I got near. Classic red flags. At first I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was planning a surprise, an elaborate wedding gift, or honeymoon idea. But in my gut, I knew better. I held off saying anything. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid, possessive partner who jumped to conclusions. I needed something concrete. Then one night we were at a friend's birthday party. Someone suggested playing this lighthearted TikTok game where you had to answer questions without overthinking. Stuff like, what's your most embarrassing memory? Or if you could switch lives with someone for a day, who would it be? Silly stuff. Until someone asked, if you could relive one relationship from your past, which would it be? Without missing a beat, Brittany said, Ryan. The room went dead silent. Ryan. Her college boyfriend. The same guy who, according to her, was her first love. The one who shattered her heart when he cheated on her with some girl from his study group. She had told me everything about him early in our relationship, how toxic he was, how she'd never go back. But that night she answered with such certainty, without even glancing in my direction. That's when everything really began to fall apart. Sam, trying to cut through the sudden tension that filled the room, cracked a joke in that awkward way people do when they don't know how to handle an uncomfortable moment. Everyone chuckled politely, but the air was still heavy. Meanwhile, I sat there frozen, forcing a smile, pretending like I didn't just hear my fiancée name her ex-boyfriend, the guy who cheated on her, as the one relationship she'd want to experience all over again. Inside, I was screaming, what the actual hell? Who says that in front of their future husband? Back at home later that night, I brought it up casually, trying to come off as lighthearted. So, Ryan, huh? Interesting pick for that question. I gave her a sideways smile, half joking, half curious. Brittany's demeanor shifted immediately. Oh my God, Jake, it was just a dumb party game. You're reading way too much into it. Maybe, I said, trying to keep things even. But out of all your exes, he's the one you'd relive a relationship with? The guy who cheated on you? I wasn't yelling or accusing, I just wanted to understand. She rolled her eyes with exaggerated frustration. Seriously? It didn't mean anything. It was the first name that popped into my head. Can we not make this into a whole thing? I let it go after that. Arguing felt pointless, and I didn't want to start a fight. But something about that moment lingered in my mind like a splinter under the skin. I couldn't shake it. From that night forward, I became more observant, more alert, and sure enough, the more I paid attention, the more unsettling things I noticed, like how Brittany had recently searched Ryan's name on Instagram, not just once, but multiple times. I only found out because I happened to glance over while she was scrolling through her phone one night. A few days later, I learned from a mutual acquaintance that Ryan had recently moved back to town after finalizing a divorce. The timing felt suspiciously convenient, and just like that, dots started connecting in ways I couldn't ignore. Then there was Brittany's best friend, Kelly. She suddenly started coming around a lot more. I'd come home from work and find the two of them at the kitchen island, whispering, sipping wine. The second I walked in, their conversations would stop cold. Kelly would give me this smile that didn't quite reach her eyes and say something like, just girl talk, before they switched topics. I overheard them one evening when I came home earlier than expected. They were sitting on the couch in our living room, chatting softly. Kelly's voice carried just enough for me to hear. So you're telling me you never think about Ryan anymore? Not even a little? Brittany's reply was hesitant, her voice barely audible. I mean, it was a long time ago. But he was your first real love, wasn't he? Kelly pressed. Those kinds of feelings don't always just disappear. I made some noise in the hallway so they'd know I was home. Immediately, the subject changed to some TV show they'd been watching. At the time, I convinced myself it was nothing, just friends being nostalgic. But that seed of doubt had already taken root. Kelly, who I once considered harmless, started dropping subtle, almost manipulative comments when Brittany was within earshot. Stuff like, marriage is such a huge decision, you want to be absolutely sure. Or, you're still young, most people don't settle down until they're in their 30s. Always said with this faux concerned tone, as if she was just looking out for her friend. After these conversations, I'd catch Brittany staring into space, deep in thought, barely responding when I spoke. One evening she turned to me with this troubled look on her face. Jake, do you ever feel like we might be moving too fast? I blinked, caught completely off guard. Too fast. Babe, we've been together for 4 years, lived together for 3, the wedding's 6 months away. I know, she said, nervously spinning her engagement ring around her finger. But Kelly was telling me about her cousin. She got married young, didn't experience enough of life, and now she's divorced at 27. What if we're basing our future on Kelly's cousin's failed marriage? I tried to keep it light, but my heart was pounding. Since when do we make decisions about our life based on someone else's mistakes? Brittany just shrugged. I don't know. Maybe there's some truth to it. Maybe we need to be sure we're ready. That was the first crack in what used to feel like solid ground. From there, the distance between us only grew. Brittany started coming home later and later from work. She'd mentioned going out for drinks with coworkers, but couldn't keep her stories straight. Sometimes forgetting who she said she was with, or mixing up the place she claimed to have gone. It wasn't anything glaring, nothing I could confront her about directly, but it chipped away at my trust, little by little. One night, we were sitting on the couch. Her phone buzzed on the table between us, screen lighting up with a message. I didn't even get a chance to glance at it before she lunged across the table, nearly spilling her drink as she grabbed it. I raised an eyebrow. It's nothing, she said too quickly, brushing hair out of her face. Just the group chat. Her voice had that strained, fake casual tone that only made me more suspicious. I didn't say anything, just leaned back, expression unreadable. But I didn't need to say a word. Her panicked reaction said it all. More red flags followed. She angled her phone away during texts, changed her lock screen code, made up flimsy excuses for plans that didn't add up. I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperation makes you do things you wouldn't normally consider. I checked our shared cloud account, the one we used to back up photos. And that's when I saw them. Pictures of Brittany out at restaurants we'd never been to together, smiling over cocktails with people I didn't recognize, places she never mentioned visiting. It didn't take much imagination to guess who she might have been with. But the final blow came one random weekday afternoon. I got off work early and thought maybe we could do something spontaneous, grab dinner at her favorite Italian spot, maybe try to recapture some of the magic we'd lost. As I walked through the front door, I felt it immediately. Something was wrong. Brittany was sitting stiffly on the couch, still in her office clothes, staring down at her phone like it had just delivered a death sentence. Hey babe, I said, trying to sound normal as I tossed my keys into the bowl by the door. You hungry? Thought we could hit up Marshall's. She startled like she hadn't even heard me come in. Her eyes darted up, then back down. Jake? We need to talk. The words every man dreads. My stomach twisted into a knot. I nodded slowly, crossing the room and sitting across from her. All right, what's on your mind? She couldn't even meet my gaze. Instead, she started fiddling with the edge of a throw pillow, pulling at the fabric like it might somehow help her find the words. I've been thinking a lot lately, she said finally, barely above a whisper. About us. About the wedding. I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to help her fill in the blanks. I think I need some time, some space, to figure things out before we get married. Time for what exactly? I asked, trying to stay calm even as my insides burned. Even though I had already pieced together most of the truth, hearing it directly from her still landed like a gut punch. Brittany inhaled deeply, as if preparing for something monumental, then finally spoke with a calm that almost felt rehearsed. I just need to make sure this is what I really want. Marriage is such a massive, life-changing commitment, Jake. I owe it to both of us to be completely certain before we take that step. I kept my voice level, my expression unreadable, watching her twist under the weight of her own confession. And how exactly do you plan on finding that certainty? I asked, tone flat but direct. That's when she let the real bomb drop. The one I'd known was coming but had hoped, foolishly, I'd never have to hear out loud. Ryan reached out to me a few weeks ago, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. We've been talking again, and I think there might still be something there. I feel like I need to explore that before I can fully commit to marrying you. Inside, I was a storm of fury and heartbreak. All the time we'd spent together, the years of shared memories, the countless late-night talks about our future, the wedding we'd been planning, down to the smallest detail, suddenly meant nothing to her. She wanted to pause our engagement to see if her ex, the guy who cheated on her and supposedly shattered her heart, might be the better option. But on the outside, I stayed composed. Letting emotion take over wouldn't serve me here. So let me get this straight, I said, voice low and calm. You want to put our engagement on hold while you go see if your ex-boyfriend fits you better? That's not what this is about, she insisted quickly, eyes locking with mine for the first time in minutes. It's not a comparison between you and Ryan. It's about making sure I don't have unresolved feelings that could sabotage us later. I need clarity. If it turns out there's nothing there, we can pick up right where we left off, I promise. I'll come back. The sheer arrogance of it hit me like a slap. The idea that I'd just hit pause on my life and patiently wait for her to go test drive a relationship with someone else, then accept her back like nothing happened, she really thought I'd be okay with being her backup plan. As she kept talking, something else began to stand out. Certain phrases she used didn't sound like her at all. Words like honoring my feelings and exploring unresolved emotional threads. That wasn't Brittany's usual way of speaking. That was Kelly's influence, without a doubt. Did Kelly suggest this break? I asked suddenly, cutting her off. Brittany flinched, her eyes widening just slightly. What? No. I mean, I talked to her about how I was feeling, but the decision is mine. Discussed socially before talking to me, your fiancé, about your uncertainty, you went to Kelly, and you discussed Ryan with her? She shifted on the couch, eyes dropping to her lap. She's my best friend, Jake. She knows my history with him. And what advice did Kelly give you when you said you were considering reconnecting with your ex while engaged to me? Brittany hesitated, then finally admitted, she said I owe it to myself to be sure, that it's better to figure this out now than to get married and have regrets later. Of course she did. I'd noticed for weeks how Kelly's presence had subtly increased, how she was always texting Brittany, always giving her these pitying, I'm just concerned looks when they were together. It all clicked. Kelly hadn't just been talking her into taking a break, she'd practically orchestrated it. How long are you planning this little soul-searching journey to last? I asked, now sounding more curious than angry. She looked relieved that I wasn't shouting, like she thought she was getting away with it. Maybe a month, she said cautiously. I'll stay at my mom's. It'll give me time to think. Her mother lived over an hour away. There was no chance Brittany was planning to make that commute every day. I knew exactly where she was going, straight into Ryan's arms. I nodded slowly, feigning consideration. If that's what you feel you need to do. You're not mad? She asked, eyes wide, surprised by my calm demeanor. I gave a small shrug. Everyone's got to do what's best for them, right? Take your time. She looked so visibly relieved it almost made me laugh. She hugged me tightly, murmuring thanks for being so understanding, completely oblivious to how rigid and cold my body had become in her arms. While she packed an overnight bag, I ordered takeout and kept up the charade, chatting about my workday, asking if she needed help loading her car. I'd played the part of the supportive fiancé to perfection. She left with a soft, I'll call you in a few days, and I waited until her taillights disappeared around the corner before I locked the door and let reality sink in. Rage came first. I slammed my fist into the nearest pillow, sending feathers flying everywhere. Then came the pacing, back and forth across the living room, breathing hard, thoughts racing. She thought she could put me on standby, that I'd just sit here, mourning the relationship while she explored her options. Then, when Ryan inevitably disappointed her again, she'd come waltzing back and I'd welcome her with open arms. No, absolutely not. The moment her car was gone, so was the nice guy act. I moved quickly, making calls and putting everything into motion, before she could change her mind and try to return. First, I called Marcus, my best friend from college. We'd been tight since freshman year and now he worked as a lawyer specializing in asset protection. I texted him. Need to talk, urgent, private. He cleared his morning schedule without hesitation. That's loyalty. Next, I dialed Sarah, my real estate agent. She was the one who helped me buy our house 2 years earlier. Remember when I said I might want to sell in a couple years? I told her. Plans changed. Need it listed ASAP. She didn't press for details, just got to work. Then I called the wedding venue. Something's come up, I said. What's your cancellation policy? They told me I'd get 60% of my deposit back if I canceled within the next week. Not ideal, but better than losing it all. I spent the rest of that night going down the list. Photographer, caterer, DJ, florist, contacting every vendor. Some deposits were gone for good, others I could partially recover. Whatever, at this point it was just money. The real goal was dismantling everything before Brittany could come crawling back, begging for a second chance. The next morning, I sat across from Marcus in his office while he laid everything out. The house, thankfully, was 100% in my name. Brittany had some credit issues when we bought it, so I handled the mortgage alone. That meant I could sell it without needing her signature or consent. The engagement ring? Also mine, legally until the marriage certificate was signed, thank God. No court battles, no drawn-out drama. And since we weren't married yet, I had zero legal obligation to give her anything. Legally and emotionally, I was in the clear to protect myself, and I didn't plan to waste that opportunity. As Marcus flipped through the final stack of documents, he leaned back in his chair and gave me a knowing look. Honestly, man, you dodged a serious bullet here. Just imagine if she'd waited until after the wedding. Splitting assets and a divorce? That would have been a nightmare. He wasn't wrong. Everything we were finalizing, releasing assets, listing the house, canceling plans, felt like emergency damage control. The thought that I might have legally tied myself to Brittany, only to have all this unravel after saying "I do," made me shudder. The house went on the market that very afternoon. Sarah, my real estate agent, priced it aggressively, not so low that it seemed suspicious, but definitely with enough margin to attract immediate buyers in a competitive housing market. Within hours, we were getting showings. Back at the house, I focused on packing only the essentials: clothes, documents, sentimental keepsakes. Everything else went into a rental storage unit under my name. While boxing up things in our shared home office, I came across something I hadn't expected to find. Tucked in the back of Brittany's desk drawer was a folder marked "Personal." Given everything that had happened, I didn't hesitate to look inside. What I found made my stomach twist. Over $42,000 in credit card debt, spread across multiple accounts I didn't even know she had. Designer brands, spa weekends, luxury dinners. And then the worst part? Receipts from a weekend stay at a high-end hotel 3 hours away, dated 2 months ago. She had told me she was visiting her sister that weekend. There were room service charges for two, a spa visit, and dinners at restaurants I'd never heard of. She'd been planning this Ryan reunion long before she ever brought up needing space. The timeline was unmistakable. As I looked closer at the receipts and dates, another pattern emerged. Her lavish spending seemed to spike right around when Kelly, her best friend, got promoted at her law firm. 1 week after the promotion party, a $700 0 cents charge at a designer boutique. The next, a pricey dinner at a rooftop restaurant. Kelly, with her luxury car, always dressed to impress vibe and high-end lifestyle, had clearly rubbed off on Brittany in more ways than one. I remembered a conversation from a dinner party a few months back. Kelly had casually tossed out, "You work too hard not to treat yourself, Britt. Life's too short to stress about saving every penny." At the time, it had just seemed like typical friend chatter. Now, it looked like a blueprint Brittany had quietly adopted behind my back. Before Kelly, Brittany had been reasonable with money. Sure, she liked nice things, but she budgeted and planned. Post-Kelly, she was spiraling into debt, chasing a lifestyle she couldn't afford, and hiding the consequences from me. I took photos of everything in that folder: statements, receipts, confirmation emails, and tucked the originals back exactly where I found them. Then I kept packing. About a week into her so-called break, Brittany texted me like nothing had happened. It was casual, cheerful even. "Hey, how's it going? Miss you." No sign of remorse. No mention of Ryan. I replied vaguely but politely, "Doing good, been taking care of some things. How's your mom's place?" Of course, I already knew she wasn't staying with her mom. My buddy Dave had spotted her and Ryan having dinner downtown just 3 nights after she left. They were seated side by side, laughing over wine like they were playing house, while she was supposedly finding clarity on her own. She had me slotted in as the backup plan, just in case Ryan didn't pan out. Then, 2 weeks into the break, something unexpected happened. Kelly, the same Kelly who had helped feed Brittany's doubts, called me out of the blue. "Can we meet for coffee?" she asked, her voice oddly soft. "There's something you should know." I didn't trust her, not after everything, but I was curious enough to say yes. We met at a Starbucks downtown. Kelly was already there when I arrived, looking unusually tense. After some awkward small talk, she leaned in and confessed everything. "Brittany's been talking to Ryan for months," she admitted, "since he moved back to town. She's been planning this break long before she ever brought it up to you. I tried to talk her out of it, but she was convinced she needed to explore her feelings." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, skeptical. "Because it's not right. She's been lying to you, stringing you along, and I can't be part of it anymore," she said, her hand brushing lightly against mine. "You deserve better than being someone's second choice." I thanked her, kept my expression calm, but didn't let her see how satisfying it was to have my suspicions confirmed. As I stood to leave, she reached for my arm. "I always thought Brittany was crazy for not appreciating what she had in you," she said softly. "Some of us wouldn't have taken you for granted." The look she gave me then left no room for misinterpretation. This wasn't just guilt. This was attraction. A weird twist, but one I decided to play along with for now. Over the next several days, Kelly started texting more often. At first, she sent updates about Brittany and Ryan, little pieces of intel that only confirmed what I already knew. But soon, the messages shifted. She started asking how my day was going, sending selfies, suggesting we meet for dinner to talk more. I agreed to one of those dinners, mostly out of curiosity. She showed up, clearly dressed to impress, makeup flawless, a tight dress, heels. During the meal, she kept touching my arm, laughing a little too hard at my jokes, and leaning in closer than necessary. After dinner, she dropped the act completely. "I've always been attracted to you," she admitted, "but I stayed away out of respect. Now, though—" I smiled, resting my hand lightly over hers. "Now things are different." I didn't take it any further. I had no interest in hooking up with Kelly, but having her on my side, armed with details about Brittany's behavior, was undeniably useful. Meanwhile, the house sold faster than expected. Just 9 days on the market, and I got $15,000, 0 cents over the asking price. I finalized the paperwork, packed up the rest of my stuff, and moved into a high-rise apartment downtown, with skyline views and modern everything. I also accepted that job offer I'd been waffling on, a big promotion at work that meant relocating to our Seattle office. It came with a hefty salary bump, a new team, and a fresh start. While Brittany thought I was home waiting for her epiphany, my entire life had moved forward. 3 weeks into her break, she finally texted again. "Hey, I've been thinking a lot. Can we meet this weekend to talk about us?" Perfect timing. Everything was set. I suggested a neutral location, an upscale coffee shop downtown, public enough to keep things civil, I hoped. I arrived early, picked a table in the corner, and waited. When Brittany walked in, she looked like she was trying to win a beauty contest. Hair freshly styled, a green dress I'd always liked, full makeup, and a bright smile the moment her eyes met mine. She moved toward me quickly, clearly expecting the man she'd left to still be sitting there, waiting to be taken back. When she walked into the cafe, she looked like she'd just stepped out of a scripted romantic comedy, the kind where the couple reunites after a dramatic misunderstanding and everything falls magically into place. Her hair was styled perfectly, she wore the green dress I'd once told her I loved, and her makeup was done just right. Subtle but intentional, she flashed a bright smile the moment she saw me, and hurried over like she was expecting some fairy tale ending. She leaned in for a hug. I gave her a stiff, one-armed pat on the back. Brief, polite, detached. "I've missed you so much," she gushed, sliding into the seat across from me. "These last few weeks have been really eye-opening." I simply sipped my coffee and nodded, letting the silence do its job. She launched into what sounded like a rehearsed monologue, her words flowing like a well-practiced speech. She spoke about how reconnecting with Ryan gave her the closure she didn't even know she needed, how it confirmed that her past belonged in the past, and how, after all the soul-searching, she realized I was her true partner, the man she wanted to spend her life with. She went on about how she was ready now, truly, fully ready, to commit to our life together, and couldn't wait to become my wife. Like I was supposed to melt. Like I was supposed to say, "Welcome back, sweetheart," and pick up where we left off. As if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't walked away to see if someone else might be better. When she finally paused to take a breath, I gave her a calm smile. "You done?" Her expression faltered slightly. "What?" "I'm just asking if you're finished with your little speech." She blinked, visibly thrown off by my tone. "Jake, I'm trying to tell you that I want to come home, that I choose you." I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "That's interesting timing," I said casually, "because I just sold our house." The color drained from her face instantly. "You what?" "Sold it. Closed last week. Made a pretty solid profit, too." She looked at me like I'd just announced I was moving to Mars. "Wait, where are you living?" "I've got a place downtown for now, just temporary. I'm moving to Seattle next month. New role at work. Promotion came through. Great opportunity." Her mouth opened and closed a few times, no words coming out, like a goldfish trying to understand quantum physics. "Seattle? New position? What? What are you even talking about?" I took another slow sip of my coffee. "Oh, and I canceled the wedding. Lost a bit on the deposits, but most of the vendors were understanding once I explained the circumstances." Her eyes filled with tears. "You canceled our wedding without even talking to me?" I laughed, but it was a cold, bitter sound. "Oh, you mean like how you had a chat with me before running off to see if things still sparked with your ex? You didn't ask, you told me. So I did the same." She stared at me in disbelief as I leaned back in my chair, calm and firm. "You wanted space, right? Congratulations. Now you've got all the space in the world." "This isn't fair," she choked out, tears finally spilling over. "I just needed time to be sure." I shrugged. "And I needed to move on with my life." She stared at me in stunned silence. Then I added, By the way, I found your credit card statements. The $42,000? 0 cents in hidden debt, including the weekend you were supposedly staying with your sister? That's all yours now. Best of luck with that." Her face crumpled like paper under a heavy hand. Reality was finally settling in. Her safety net was gone, and her carefully laid plans had completely unraveled. "We can still fix this," she begged, reaching across the table to grab my hand. "We can push the wedding back, find another house, start fresh." At that exact moment, her phone buzzed on the table. A text notification lit up the screen, one that made her face go white. From Kelly. "Did he buy the BS apology? Lol." She snatched up her phone in a panic, but it was too late. I'd seen it, and she knew I'd seen it. "Kelly's been texting you?" she asked, clearly rattled. "Among other things," I replied with a thin smile, though to be honest, lately I've been more interested in getting to know Jess from my office. She's been amazing throughout all of this, actually supportive, grounded. That part was true. While Kelly had tried to throw herself at me in some bizarre act of revenge or self-gratification, Jess had simply been there, helping me sort through relocation paperwork, listening when I needed to vent, even recommending apartments in Seattle. She never made it about herself. Never once tried to twist the situation for her gain. "You've been seeing other people?" Brittany asked, voice cracking, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "No, Brittany," I said firmly. "I've been rebuilding my life while you were playing house with your ex-boyfriend. There's a difference." That finally broke her. The sobs came hard, shoulders shaking, hands covering her face. Every eye in the cafe turned toward us. Let them stare. "Please, Jake," she sobbed. "I made a huge mistake. I love you. I want us back. Please give me another chance." I stood slowly, placing a 20 on the table to cover the coffee. "That's the thing, Britt," I said, my voice calm, final. "I already have started over, and my new life doesn't have a place for someone who treated me like a backup option." As I walked away, she called after me in a desperate voice, "What am I supposed to do now?" I paused, turned slightly, and said without malice, "I hear Ryan's available, though word is he's already seeing someone new. Tough break." The look on her face was priceless. Like everything she thought was guaranteed had slipped right through her fingers. Her plan had imploded. Walking out of that coffee shop felt like releasing a 100-pound weight I hadn't even known I was carrying. For weeks I'd been buried in logistics, selling the house, canceling the wedding, sorting the move. I hadn't given myself time to feel. But that walk away from her lies, her manipulation, her self-centered version of love, was freedom. Later that night, the texts started. First came the apologetic ones. "I'm so sorry. Please can we talk?" Then the angry ones. "I can't believe you sold our house without telling me." And eventually the desperate ones. "I'll do anything to fix this. Anything." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The next day her mother called me. Apparently Brittany had shown up in hysterics, sobbing about how I'd blindsided her. She painted herself as the victim, twisting the facts. "I'm honestly shocked," her mom said when I calmly explained everything. "Ryan, the debt, the break. She told me you two were just taking a short break to reflect on the wedding." Of course she did. Well, now she has all the time in the world to think, I had said that day in the cafe. And I meant every word. It's been 3 months since that moment. Since Brittany sat across from me, delivering her poorly rehearsed redemption speech, and man, has my life flipped in the best way imaginable. Seattle has been everything I didn't know I needed. My apartment sits high up in a modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows that give me a stunning view of the waterfront. On clear days, I can see the Space Needle standing proudly in the skyline, like a monument to the life I left behind and the one I've built since. The city's energy, with its blend of innovation, culture, and natural beauty, is electric. Every morning feels like a reset button has been pushed, and I wake up ready to chase bigger things. My new role here has been a complete game changer. I'm heading up an entire division now. More autonomy, better pay, and actual recognition from people who value results over politics. For the first time in years, I don't dread opening my inbox. I'm respected. I'm thriving. Funny how quickly life can rebound when you stop clinging to what's already broken. But I know you all want the real juice, so let me rewind a little and give you the full wrap-up on how things finally unraveled for Brittany back home. About a week after I landed in Seattle, I got a message request on Instagram. Totally unexpected. It was from Ryan. Yeah, that Ryan, the ex she left me to explore her feelings for. At first I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was long, full of backpedaling and half-hearted empathy. He said he never meant to come between us, claimed Brittany had initiated contact months before she asked for the infamous break. According to him, she'd been reaching out the moment she found out he was back in town, testing the waters, laying the groundwork for her little detour. And here's the kicker. Ryan dumped her just days after our coffee shop meeting. His exact words, "If she could do this to you, she could do it to anyone. Karma's a bitch, huh?" That gave me a bigger sense of closure than any apology ever could. Meanwhile, Brittany's professional life took a nosedive. She had lined up several freelance design clients, some pretty big names too. But after everything came out, those gigs started drying up. I never badmouthed her, not once. I didn't need to. Word travels fast in creative industries, especially in cities where reputation matters. One of her biggest clients even reached out to me personally. "We heard about the engagement falling through," they said. "We're looking for someone reliable, long-term. Know anyone good?" I passed the opportunity to my buddy Alex. Solid designer, great guy, needed the work. He landed the contract. Brittany got nothing. Her social media spiral was a whole saga in itself. First came the sad quotes, melodramatic posts about losing your soulmate and realizing too late what you had. Then came the bitterness, swipes at toxic people who couldn't handle her growth. Finally, the desperate phase, trying to show the world she was thriving, with post selfies, motivational captions, and a big announcement about launching her own design firm. That illusion crumbled fast. Just 3 days later, a friend saw her filling out job applications at a local coffee shop. The so-called business? Dead on arrival. Last week, her sister messaged me. Apparently, Brittany's been living back at their parents' house, moping around and claiming she needs time to heal from the breakup. Her sister's exact words were, "She really thought you'd wait. When she found out you sold the house and moved across the country, it shattered her fantasy." Good. Sometimes the only way forward is through the hard truth. The most poetic part? A few weeks ago during a video chat with my old friend group, someone casually mentioned seeing Brittany struggling to explain to a client why her online portfolio was down. Guess she forgot I was the one who set up her website and paid for the hosting. She didn't know how to renew it once it expired. Not my problem anymore. My new life, on the other hand, is coming together beautifully. I've started learning Spanish, slowly, but progress is progress. I also adopted a rescue dog named Moose. He's this floppy-eared, ridiculously loyal mutt who greets me like I'm his whole world every time I walk through the door. Doesn't lie, doesn't hide things, just happy to see me. He's already a better companion than Brittany ever was. Seattle's tech community has welcomed me with open arms. Just last week, I was invited to speak at a developer conference, something that never would have happened if I'd stayed stuck in the comfort zone back home. It's wild how far you can go when you stop dragging dead weight. As for Brittany, our last interaction happened about a month ago. She emailed me, asking if I could send her some old photos from our shared cloud account. Too late, I'd already downloaded what I wanted and deleted the rest. Her email said, "I know you're trying to erase me from your life, but you can't just delete our memories. Those 4 years meant something." My reply was short. "You're right. Those years taught me exactly what I don't want in a partner. Thanks for the lesson." Some mutual friends say I'm being harsh, that maybe I should have a little more sympathy, that it was just a moment of confusion on her part. But let's be clear, that wasn't confusion. It was a conscious, calculated choice. She kept me warm on the bench while she went off to see if Ryan's still fit. That's not confusion, that's manipulation. And Kelly? We hooked up a few times before I left. No strings, no expectations. She was clearly more interested in sticking it to Brittany than anything else. I was fine with that. We both got what we needed. Closure, of a sort. Now Jess, that's a different story. She ended up getting transferred to our Seattle office, and we've been seeing each other casually for about a month. No pressure, no games. She's the polar opposite of what I had before. Direct, grounded, emotionally intelligent. We're taking it slow, and that's perfectly fine with me. If there's one major takeaway from this whole chaotic chapter, it's this. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Don't fall into the trap of thinking they'll change. Don't wait around, hoping they'll become the version of themselves you wished for. Brittany showed me who she was, someone who could throw away a future just to test drive a fantasy. I'm just grateful I saw it before we exchanged vows, bought a bigger house, or brought children into the mix. Now I'm here, in a city that inspires me, working a job that challenges and rewards me, building friendships that are real. I've replaced the sting of betrayal with a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for escaping when I did, gratitude for the peace I've found. To everyone who followed this journey, especially those of you who sent comments and messages of support, you helped more than you know, seriously. Your words reminded me I wasn't crazy for walking away, that self-respect isn't optional. I'm going to sign off now. Moose needs a walk, and I've got dinner plans with Jess. Life moves on. And sometimes, it moves on to something far better than you ever imagined.